And a very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Lord, and in our top story at 7, the island's two top law enforcement officials faced the press late this evening in the wake of a number of gun-related crimes. Our Ryan Broom is live at police headquarters. Good evening, Ryan.
Hi, good evening, Lisa. How are you doing? Good evening, viewers. Well, the Attorney General, Mr. Adriel Brathwaite, and the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Tyrone Griffith, they wrapped up a session here today to deal with issues of crime in the wake of the recent violent incidents and shooting incidents that have been happening in Barbados. And one of the themes that they left this press conference with was their reassurance to Barbadians that all is safe. One of the other areas that they looked at was the island's ports of entry, and I believe we had some footage on that earlier interview and clip.
In relation to firearms, we have revamped our anti-gun unit, where we've increased the numbers as well as retooled the personnel. And that unit is now performing extremely well, to the extent that with the assistance of the TRU, the SCATS unit, as well as the CID, we've been able to take some 44 firearms off the streets so far for the year. Yet, we're aware that several firearms are still coming into the country, and we're seeking to have that dialogue with our other law enforcement partners at our points of entry to ensure that we can reduce the number of firearms that are entering in our ports.
And Lisa, the Commissioner has also said that there's been a change in the type of murders that we're seeing now. Actually, what he said is that we're seeing more brazen attacks in the daylight, and the fact that a lot of these people know each other and that they're criminals who are engaged in that kind of activity where it's more or less looking for turf wars, as they say, or gang crimes.
What we're seeing is that many of the deceased persons are themselves the perpetrators of similar heinous crimes. And so what is difficult is that in the past, where persons would report these matters and cooperate with the police, that is no longer the case, in that many people are trying to exact their own revenge and so are not willingly cooperating with law enforcement to ensure that the perpetrators are brought before the law courts.
And arising from this situation, the Attorney General is saying that we need to do a little bit more when it comes to our young people, and that the efforts are underway in terms of that. He highlighted the fact that the Barbados Youth Service is one of those positive areas.
We as a country, all of us, individually and collectively, the family, the church, work, friends, neighbors, all of us need to put our hands to the plow and try to move more of our young people back to center.
And he also raised the issue of cash for gold, a problem he says is coming back up, where some companies are going back to their old ways.
What we're concerned about is that, in fact, that many of the dealers have now gone back to their old ways. And let me signal that in fact that we have received some reports that have suggested that, and we're going to do all in our power to not allow Barbados to go back to those dark days when even the cable in your telephone was being stolen and stripped down and sold, etc. The other side of the coin also is that, from what I'm being told, that, which I wasn't really aware of, frankly, is that we now have a couple of pawn shops that is not even just jewelry, that in fact that you can take in tools and be loaned some money against your tools, etc.
And Lisa, he also talked about the party cruises, noting that they'll be taking some measures to make sure that they know the numbers of people on those cruises and the identities in cases of safety really, to make sure that when they go out, that they know who the people who are on those vessels to take care of that situation. He also mentioned too that there may be an increase in the stop and searches, which have been a feature in recent years, and looking forward to crop over, that there will be also, police officers will be out in full force to ensure the safety of the public. So from police headquarters here in Roebuck Street, I'm Ryan Broom for CBC News.
And thank you very much, Ryan. Well, the industrial action by the 4 trade unions changed gears this morning. Several Transport Board drivers did not report for work, leaving many commuters stranded or experiencing delays. Rianne Phillips tells us more.
Private service vehicles such as these route taxis and minibuses were the only mode of transport available for some commuters today. This as only 1/5 of the 100 state-owned Transport Board buses were operational. Services to the north of the island were disrupted, but many of the PSVs readily filled the gap.
It wasn't much different to what it normally is. I mean, it was just a slight increase, but nothing to really shout about.
Manager of Marketing and Corporate Communication at the Transport Board, Linda Holder, says there were only 20 drivers this morning.
We deployed those 20 drivers as best we could to cover as much of the island as we could manage, and we will continue with that plan of action until we see some sort of change. We would have engaged the private sector through the Transport Authority, and they have agreed to assist us in any way they can.
Efforts from Transport Board officials resulted in the bypass routes eventually being serviced.
As you're aware, those routes would normally cover 4, in some instances 6 of the parishes based on how that route network is set up. And from there we will also then move into what we consider the more vulnerable areas and continue to deploy our resources in that manner.
Some industrial action is expected to continue on Friday. However, the form it will take or the agencies that will be involved are unknown. Rianne Phillips, CBC News.
And as the country's trade unions ramped up their industrial action, officials from the Barbados Private Sector Association attended an emergency session discussing the country's current crisis. However, their current position is quite different to that of the unions. Kareem Smith has the details.
Industrial action must cease. This was the clear message sent by President of the Barbados Private Sector Association, Charles Herbert. It came following the emergency meeting at the Lloyd Erskine Sandyford Center today, which was packed with concerned private sector officials. Mr. Herbert says the association is doing what it can to minimize the impact of the current action on the island's businesses and emphasize that the association remains opposed to the action being taken.
We understand their frustrations, and therefore we would like to perhaps, you know, if we have dialogue, their concerns may be part of that dialogue. But we certainly would like to see the industrial action come to an end as quickly as possible.
However, that position in no way indicates that they're satisfied with government's response to concerns about the recent budget. The association believes the Frundle Stewart administration continues to drag its feet with the necessary discussions needed to avoid disastrous consequences. He wants members of the broader social partnership to collaborate with them to produce recommendations on how the country's economy can be turned around.
Our goal is to allow feedback from the entire population and to try and develop policies which have broad consensus. We realize that all of these policies will not be private sector policies, but we are committed to consensus policies which have broad support.
These policies would be based on the Private Sector Association's medium-term fiscal strategy following last month's budget, but altered to reflect the feedback given by those social partnership members willing to bring ideas to the table. Noting that the private sector was in no position to make demands of the government, Mr. Herbert says in light of the current challenges, it's important that government understands their position and respond accordingly. Kareem Smith, CBC News.
Burger King Barbados' efforts to set up a mobile restaurant at University Hill St. Michael has hit a snag. CBC News was informed that ongoing work at the site requires planning permission. Currently, a deck is being constructed and a security fence erected. But the chief town planner, Mark Cummings, says that no planning permission was granted. As a result, a warning notice was issued. Burger King now has to make the necessary application. General Manager of Burger King, Ryan Walters, tells the CBC News that they did receive a call from the Town and Country Planning Department and a subsequent notice was placed on the site. Burger King responded by letter and is moving to make the necessary application. Once approved, another 12 Barbadians will be employed with the fast food franchise. Well, local farmers are not keeping proper records of their daily practices, and it's proving to be a major challenge. This revelation from trade consultant Dr. Kian Skeet. Sharika Griffith has more in this report.
Organic, gluten-free and no GMO are but a few of the guarantees people look for when shopping. But many of our local farmers have not been providing this evidence, and that's because they're not keeping proper records of how they grow their produce. The issue has been raised by Dr. Kian Skeet, who's been working with local farmers over the past month during a series of training workshops.
In order to export, you need to meet certain standards. Even for our cruise ship industry is built on standards to provide standards. So a cruise ship will tell you, I would take X amount of chicken or water, but it has to be of a certain standard. How do we ensure the standard is there? We need to ensure that we keep the records going.
Dr. Skeet was speaking during a benchmarking session to track the success of the workshops so far. She also reveals many local farmers have never received schooling in the area. And while some believe experience is the best teacher, she believes it could boost efficiency and bring in more income.
Certification is important because it exposes them to new technologies, new tools. So, for instance, whether it would be farming in barrels, farming in bags, no-dig farming, all these are new tools to update farmers. And also, certification is important because it helps farmers to ensure that their products are up to a certain standard. Because certification will keep teaching you about the standards, the grades, the type of records that you need to keep as a farm.
Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Society, James Paul, says the next 3 sessions will take farmers from the classroom into the field for hands-on training. They'll be seeking to identify plots of land as well as demonstrating proper techniques to increase production of sweet potatoes, onions, tomatoes, pumpkins and watermelon.
And for each crop that we spoke to just now, we will want to identify what is the acreage that we'll be aiming at, and the acreage that we identify, we will be closely monitoring their performance as we go along, so that, for instance, for the next benchmarking session, we will actually review, the extent to which we were able to achieve that acreage, and also we'll want to report on the progress at the same time.
More than 80 farmers have benefited from the training workshops so far. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
And stay with us, we'll have more news right after the break.
Don't let your data experience slow you down. Step up to Digicel, Barbados' fastest 4G network, more than twice as fast as the slow network. Get more with Digicel. Digicel, the fastest 4G network in Barbados. Dial *153# to sign up to Digicel today.
Look, turn on the mic, man. I got something to say. I wanted to know that the Scotiabank Junior Monarch Final, in association with LGM Stage Lighting, is on Saturday, July 22nd at the Kensington Oval 3Ws Amphitheatre from 7 p.m. Last year was enough action, and I know this year give me more fair. Who does do more social commentary than we youngsters? Not a boy. We always snapping and posting. So now it's time to put down the social media and hear the future of Calypso commentate on what's going on in we society, live and direct. Anyways, I got going on, but I can be looking for you on Saturday, July 22nd at the Kensington Oval 3Ws Amphitheatre for the Scotiabank Junior Monarch Final in association with LGM Stage Lighting at 7 p.m. Adults $30. Available at the NCF, www.ticketpal.com and all Copover box offices.
CBC TV 8 is giving you the chance to win 2 VIP tickets to the Flow Soca on the Hill this Sunday. Name the local band appearing at Soca on the Hill for the first time. Email your answer to marketing@cbc.bb by 12 noon Thursday, July 20th. And listen to Morning Barbados on Friday to find out if you are the lucky winner.
Barbadians who need to access national insurance unemployment benefits are being reminded that there is no shame in coming forward with their claims. This is according to Parliamentary Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Senator Harcourt Husbands. He was speaking during debate on the National Insurance and Social Security Amendment Bill 2017 in the Senate. Now, unemployment in Barbados remains low, currently sitting at around 9%. But Senator Husbands is reminding those who have contributed to the fund and are currently unemployed to come forward with dignity.
Especially when you're going for unemployment, you are at a low point in your life. However that unemployment came about, the business may have closed, you got fired, whatever, you are facing a critical point in your life, and it is then that you need professional guidance and assistance. You don't need people passing judgments on you or making snide remarks.
Well, labor migration may be one of the ways to tackle the issue of growth in the labor force, and this is the view of Senator Darcy Boyce. He acknowledged that government can no longer continue to raise NIS rates or increase the age for pension, and that migration could be a viable option. But the senator says that it is important that migration is managed carefully.
To make sure that we get people at the right age ranges, that we get people with the right skills, and we get people, and that we maintain, we're conscious of maintaining the balance in the society, to which some of us have already referred.
Senator Boyce is suggesting that if migration is not seriously looked at, there could be consequences.
If we do not deal with it, and our labor force begins to decline, then we actually will face a situation where our economic growth will stagnate or also begin to decline. Unless we're able to get technology and adapt technology and use it, that we can keep on increasing the productivity of our country.
Well, the island's mountainous debt could be erased in about 2 years. And the newest party in the political fray, the New Barbados Kingdom Alliance, believes that it has the solution to do so. While not revealing the details of its plans, the party's lone candidate at present, Apostle Linroy Scantlebury, insists that it is possible. And he was speaking as he officially launched his campaign to contest the St. Peter's seat in the next general election. Well, days after the killing of Kenrick Adolphus Spooner, lawmen have made some headway with their investigations into his death. 2 teenage boys are currently assisting police with their investigations. 48-year-old Spooner of number 1 Poolland St. John was discovered lying face down in a bushy area at Toddsland in St. George last Thursday, and his body bore what appeared to be chop wounds to his head and neck. Well, Barbados is once again home to a super centenarian as the island's oldest woman, Millicent Yearwood, turned 110 today. Records indicate that only 2 other Barbadians have ever achieved this feat, and our Sharika Griffith spent some time with the birthday girl.
Oh, yeah. Millicent Yearwood has reached a milestone only a handful of Barbadians can lay claim to. She's not only turned 100, but she's added another decade on top of that. But during birthday celebrations at her Fitz Village home, Yearwood's only daughter, Mavis Small Raper, admits she was a bit worried after her mother was hospitalized earlier this year.
She gave me a scare earlier this year, you know, because she was, what you say, she don't drink water, and you have to force her, so the doctor just sent her in the hospital a bit, you know. So, but otherwise it's okay.
So is she generally in good health?
Yeah.
What about her sight, her hearing?
Well, the sight is very good, but the hearing a bit, you know, you got to shout.
However, according to Mavis, Miss Yearwood, who has 7 grands, 20 great-grands, and 6 great-great-grands, is still very independent.
She does everything for herself. She bathes herself, she feeds herself, everything.
So how does she spend her days lately?
sleeping. But at night, she sit down, she sing, or she talk.
Any favorites in terms of food?
She like cocoa or ground food.
Rayanne Archer has plenty fond memories of her great-grandmother, who was a plantation worker and a hawker in her younger days.
Used to catch for a walk on the road and thing. I even used to catch in sea too. And she would tell me, don't carry me in the water. She always tell me about she mother.
So tell me about some of the white words of wisdom she might have given to you.
She would tell me walk to with friends. And she would tell me go to school and learn and thing.
Miss Yearwood was presented with gifts by the National Committee on Aging. Chairman Sylvester Niles says his committee will be seeking to have Yearwood's achievement recorded in an international database.
And we asked the Department of Gerontology in Los Angeles, California, to have her name registered along with those of Mr. James Sisney and Miss Emily Clapp.
The family plans to continue the festivities on Saturday. Miss Yearwood is one of several centenarians to have their picture featured on special issue stamps during the island's 50th anniversary of independence celebrations. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
And when we return, we'll have news from across the Caribbean.
Bacchanal Time presents the best of Crop Over, Wednesday, August the 2nd and Thursday, August the 3rd. Two big shows at the Lloyd Erskine Sanford Center, 8 p.m. Featuring Red Plastic Bag, Nikita, Peter Ram, The Woodman, Skrilla, Purple Heart, what type of wood you want? Marsville, Lead Pipe and Satis, Lady Essence, Lastman, Soca King, Stiffy, Comedy of Mad, Queen Archer Wilcox, and Rum and Coke, Edwin, Lil Rick, and more. I come here to jump down, short girls and tall girls. Bacchanal Time presents the best of Crop Over, Wednesday, August the 2nd and Thursday, August the 3rd at the Lloyd Erskine Sanford Center. Do you have your tickets? I want to give it to you.
Be a part of the action, but be apart from the crowd. It's a great way to be there without being there. Watch Soca Royale on pay-per-view via MCTV channel 118 for US $25 or Barbados $51. For MCTV bookings, call 228-6288. CBC, sharing it all on pay-per-view via MCTV. CBC, your link to the festival.
Minding Your Business, brought to you every Monday during the CBC Evening News at 7:55, with the kind compliments of the Barbados Workers Union Cooperative Credit Union Limited, who remind you to save smart and borrow smarter.
If Spoiler was here, he would tell Jack Warner, I'm glad you get rid of that Montano fella.
CBC, proud sponsor of Soca Legends.
On to regional news now. Some bad news for Trinidad and Tobago in the U.S. government report. That Twin Island Republic is listed as the country with the highest recruitment rate for ISIS fighters per capita. The information is contained in the Department of State country report, which says it has particular concerns about Trinidad and Tobago. We get more in the CNC3 report.
This makes Trinidad the highest per capita contributor to ISIL in the Western Hemisphere. And some experts think up to 400 people may have gone.
This country already has a less than ideal reputation when it comes to its link to ISIS. A recent documentary done by Middle Eastern television network Al Jazeera claimed more than 130 TNT nationals flew to Syria to take up arms for the Islamic State. Some of that information seems to be corroborated by the United States government. In its country report on terrorism, which was published on its website today, it says this country had the highest per capita rate of ISIS recruitment in the Western Hemisphere for 2016. It claims there were no known indigenous or foreign terrorist groups operating in this country. But it says government reports indicate more than 100 nationals traveled to Syria and Iraq. Based on the report, more than 70 nationals of Trinidad and Tobago are believed to be fighting with ISIS in Syria. However, the U.S. does not disclose the source of this information. What is clear, though, is its skepticism of local law enforcement. It says there was limited cooperation as well as limited information sharing due to allegations of corruption among different law enforcement units. In the 10 countries it assessed in the Western Hemisphere, it only provides numbers of ISIS fighters for Trinidad and Tobago. Interestingly, this country is the only one which is directly linked to the terrorist group.
Former Education Minister in Guyana, Dr. Rupert Roopnarine, who was recently reassigned to head the public service, has reportedly tendered his resignation. But President David Granger says that Mr. Roopnarine is still a member of his cabinet. HGP-TV's Javon Vickery tells us more.
Dr. Rupert Roopnarine says he is in good health, that he needs some time to write. He has declared himself incommunicado from the media, so there is no confirmation of the report that Dr. Roopnarine has actually tendered his resignation. But here's what the president had to say.
Dr. Roopnarine has resigned. I've approved the resignation. But you received the one?
The president was at the time responding to questions posed by the media about reports of Working People's Alliance executive member Dr. Rupert Roopnarine resigning from the coalition government. Dr. Roopnarine, who was the Minister of Education, was recently reassigned by President Granger to head the Public Service Ministry. Minister Roopnarine told the media after he was reassigned that while he was consulted on the move by Cabinet, his party, the Working People's Alliance, had not been informed. The president has been reluctant to confirm or deny Dr. Roopnarine's resignation.
I received a letter from Dr. Roopnarine, the contents of which I will not disclose. But he cannot resign until I have accepted a resignation. And as far as I'm concerned, I have not done so.
Dr. Roopnarine, shortly after his reassignment, had told the media also, quote, "I'm looking forward to the new ministry. It is a new challenge. I did the best I could in the education ministry," end of quote. Dr. Roopnarine and President Granger are expected to meet soon.
Well, I have to meet Dr. Roopnarine to discuss certain matters with him. And when those discussions are ended, if he wishes to speak with the media, he'll speak with the media. But right now, Dr. Roopnarine remains a member of the cabinet.
Nightly News contacted Minister Roopnarine for a comment, but he remains incommunicado.
Guadeloupe recorded its 20th homicide for the year after a man was stabbed to death in the capital Bastille. The young man was stabbed about the body, including his heart. A judicial investigation has been opened for intentional homicide. Well, Dutch St. Martin is considering implementing a sin tax on cigarettes, tobacco and alcohol. Minister of Health ML Lee says it's in an effort to help cover costs associated with the national health insurance and to reduce the burden on taxes from salaries. Lee also wants the sin tax to cover sugary soft drinks. Now, a sin tax is a tax on items considered undesirable or harmful, such as alcohol or tobacco. Well, lawmakers in the British Virgin Islands have been singled out as the prime offenders of the no cell phone in court policy. Senior Magistrate Tamaya Richards accused some lawyers of playing games on their phones while they sit at the bar table, which is located directly in front of her. Now, she commented on the attorney's non-compliance with the no cell phone policy after the cell phone of someone in the court rang. The rule has been enforced at the courts in recent times, and no cell phone signs have been erected at the entrance to some buildings. But some persons have raised concern that they have nowhere to leave their phones when they travel from their homes to the court. And here's a tip now from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Before a hurricane, you should fill your vehicle with gasoline so that it is available for emergency purposes in the event that gas stations are not working. Cooperators General Insurance, helping you to be prepared this hurricane season.